This is CTV News with Mi Jung Lee and Scott Roberts.
Breaking news tonight as we are learning the unprecedented BC storm that triggered widespread flooding and numerous landslides has now turned deadly.
Officials say multiple vehicles were swept off the road in this mudslide south of Lillooet on Highway 99. And tonight, the province confirms that one woman has been killed and 2 people are still missing.
Meanwhile, new video is providing more insight into the sheer destruction caused in many parts of the province. These images showing the Coquihalla Highway in complete ruins as water has washed away lanes and bridge decks in multiple locations, cutting off parts of the interior from the lower mainland.
Highway 1 has also been shut down just east of Abbotsford as water has completely covered BC's busiest roadway.
Rescue operations continued all day for people trapped by floodwaters, some taken to safety by helicopters and others by boat, with so many roads impassable.
And new evacuations have also been ordered in addition to the entire community of Merritt. Thousands are now out of their homes province-wide, some still sleeping in their vehicles, and many stranded far away from their homes, unsure when they can go back.
Good evening. We have extensive coverage on the landslides and flooding tonight. A lot of information to get to, but we start with the confirmation of one person killed in a mudslide with 2 people still unaccounted for.
This happened on Highway 99 between Pemberton and Lillooet. Shannon Patterson has more on the death and a couple who barely escaped that slide caused by the storm of the century.
It was really scary.
The photos on their phone, a reminder of how close Melissa and Dave Medeiros came to being swallowed up in a massive mudslide south of Lillooet.
It was really surreal. Kind of feels like describing a movie at this point. It doesn't really feel like describing real life.
The Vancouver couple was heading home from Kamloops Monday afternoon.
Every route was closed except for Highway 99. We decided we had to go with it and take that route.
Traffic suddenly stopped for a small mudslide on the highway.
At that point, I got out because I wanted to go see how big this mud flow that we were blocked by.
Melissa remained in the car as her husband walked out of sight.
I hear this cracking sound and I turn around and the forest is just like moving and coming down maybe like 30 feet behind me.
I was just kind of frozen for a minute, and then I heard other people start yelling, and then it just clicked that I don't know where my wife is. So I ran as fast as I could back to the car, and luckily I saw my wife honking and just the car pin driving as fast as she could away from that thing.
They managed to avoid the river of mud and debris, but saw several smashed and buried cars off the side of the highway.
There was a off-duty firefighter who really got everybody organized and got everybody gathering chainsaws and shovels and ropes and doing everything that they could to go in and help get these people out of their vehicles. And so there were a few people who came out of their vehicles. One of them looked pretty bloody and knocked up.
But not everyone made it out alive. The body of a woman from the lower mainland has been found in the slide.
Tragic. Deepest condolences to the family. A simple drive home gone bad for sure. You know, what more can you say? It's just a tragic event.
I'm also aware of concerns that there may be additional victims in the mudslide near Lillooet. Search and rescue specialists are conducting significant work in this area, and the RCMP will continue to remain involved in these searches.
This is the only road connecting Lillooet to Pemberton, Whistler, and Metro Vancouver. Until it reopens, the community has essentially been cut off.
The Medeiroses are thankful they were able to escape with their lives.
Very happy, very lucky to be alive, very, very happy, and lucky that my wife is still here and wasn't caught in it.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Pemberton.
And the storm having a serious impact in the Fraser Valley as well. CTV's David Mulco is live in Chilliwack, which is completely cut off from the rest of the province. David, what's the situation on the ground there?
Yeah, cut off on the east, I should say, towards Hope, and on the west towards Abbotsford here. The evacuation orders, by the way, both in Abbotsford and here in Chilliwack, continuing to rise. About 2,200 homes, so 8,000 people, somewhere in there, 6,000 to 8,000 people in Yarrow and Sumas Prairie under evacuation order right now as we speak. Despite those orders, despite the very real risk to life and livelihood, Mi Jung, some families like the Mulders say they're just not ready to go.
From above, Ed Mulder's farm looks like it's about to be swallowed. On the ground, he points out, the source of his troubles.
If it breaks, that dike breaks, then we're hooped. If it holds, we'll be fine.
Why stay? Help me understand.
I guess it's just part of being a farmer.
Because the Mulders have been here since '94, you see, on this vast plain that acts like a giant drain.
Our field would normally be potatoes, and yeah, it's water right now. It's filled up.
Inside these barns, 15,000 egg-laying hens, with just inches to go between newly born lakes and disaster.
Everything we do is based on keeping them healthy and happy, and to walk away from it, it's tough.
So this one here is yesterday, and that's this morning.
His neighbors' homes already turned into islands. These herds set free to seek drier ground. The family truck packed with nearly nothing.
What's in there?
Yet everything.
Pictures, photo albums, change of clothes.
That's everything.
It's everything that matters. This is an act of God. It is what it is. We see it on the news all the time in other places in the world, and this time it's our turn. That's all.
Incredible pictures there, David. You can hear the emotion in Ed's voice. You just got off the phone with him. What did he tell you?
You know, they were feeling optimistic most of the day. He and his wife Hester, their 21-year-old son Jake, their 2 daughters who'd evacuated. But he said, David, look, we were there, the sun was going down. I could see at the road toward the edge of the fields, the water had risen and was starting to pour over the top. He said it would be maybe a half hour, an hour before the property was inundated. So they got out of there. I said to him, good luck and Godspeed. One story, one family, one of thousands tonight, Mi Jung. Just hoping against hope.
Thank you, David.
Meanwhile, the city of Chilliwack has issued an evacuation order for the community of Yarrow, southwest of downtown Chilliwack.
Nafisa Karim is following this in the Breaking News Center. Nafisa.
Well, this is a significant evacuation order covering around 3,300 people and around 1,000 homes. All residents from Boundary to Brown Road and all of Majuba Hill have been asked to leave their homes immediately. The community was on evacuation alert, but that was upgraded to an order. A single lane on Vetter Mountain Road is available to residents leaving Yarrow and emergency personnel only. RCMP have been posted at access points to the community. Now, evacuees are being told to head to an emergency reception center at Chilliwack Secondary School. Officials will monitor water levels overnight and provide an update on this tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Nafisa.
A massive evacuation remains in affected Abbotsford tonight as the torrential rain turned parts of that area into a flood zone, shutting down Highway 1 and leaving people in need of rescue. CTV's Michelle Bernero is live in Abbotsford with more on the situation there tonight. Michelle.
Yeah, rescues have been ongoing today. Now, behind me is a park, but if you can see the light reflecting off the water, this park looks more like a lake. The water swallowing up this park as it has so much of Sumas Prairie. About 1,100 homes evacuated, and this isn't over yet. It's hard to believe the farms, the homes, the properties, the livelihoods, all underwater. Sumas Prairie not looking like farmland, but like a massive lake. Those forced to flee stunned by how fast it all unfolded.
Within 2 hours, we went from water coming around the house to, 2 feet of water surrounding everything. We were trying to keep things together, but within minutes, everything just began up and floating away.
This is the overpass at Whatcom now. Last night, this is what it looked like. Cars submerged as roads turned into waterways. boats with search and rescue and police trying to rescue people in a dangerous and fast-changing environment.
We had, one member had to throw in a life jacket and swim out or wade out towards a car that was overturned to bring someone back, and that was just almost on a regular basis for about 2 hours there, of cars that had flipped over, people on the roofs of cars.
Families forced to flee their homes being cared for at an emergency evacuation center in Abbotsford.
This is an uncertain and scary time for people who are affected.
Many people stuck Monday night as the highway shut down. Meanwhile, 89-year-old Agito Zanardo has lived on Sumas Prairie his whole life. He says he's never seen it this bad. His daughter is saying the flooding making a difficult time for their family even worse.
Devastating. My mom's in the hospital and my dad's not well, and yeah, we don't need it. It's a real tough time.
Abbotsford's mayor says as waters from the Nooksack River in Washington state continue to push across the border, the farming community is coming together.
There are people with power boats hauling cows out of their barns to Highway 1 to dry ground.
But the worry remains high because no one knows just how long this crisis will last.
Okay, Michelle, what is the latest on the rescues there tonight? Are they still happening into the evening?
Well, we know that late this afternoon, early this evening, there was a rescue that took place. And, a really frightening situation for these people. I just spoke a short time ago with a woman. She is a senior. She lives in the Whatcom Road area of Sumas Prairie with her husband, who is in his 80s. When the evacuation order came down last night, she says it was already the water too high for them to be able to escape on their own. She says they've been trying to get rescued ever since. She said boats tried to get to them, but the current was too swift. A helicopter tried to get to them, couldn't get to them. Late this afternoon, a boat was able to get to them. She says it took more than an hour to get them through the water and to safety. They're at the evacuation center tonight. They are safe. They are grateful to be out, worried about their animals, worried about what tomorrow holds, but grateful that they are out of there. Scott?
Okay, Michelle Bernaro live with the latest on the situation in Abbotsford tonight. Thank you, Michelle.
It is a long road ahead to repair the major BC arteries battered by the unprecedented atmospheric river. And right now, Vancouver is cut off from the rest of the country. Sinjin Alexander has been looking at ways to travel east. And Sinjin, really the only way to drive to the interior and beyond is through the U.S.
Exactly, and we're trying to find a way to get to, say, Kelowna, and one of the most common routes, as you know, is likely Highway 1. It's often the fastest, but it is closed, completely flooded between Abbotsford and Chilliwack. Another option, taking the low-heat highway past Mission Dewdney, but then just before Agassiz, Highway 7 is also closed. The gorgeous, long, scenic route past Whistler into Kamloops is also no good. Just as you reach Pemberton, Highway 99 is closed to Lillooet. And of course, here is why. These are the images we are seeing all over the province. In Abbotsford, it's a waiting game. That water has to recede. Then they will go in, see how bad the damage is, and figure out what needs to be fixed. There are crews everywhere doing the same kind of work, trying to assess, but these images show just how hard it's going to be and why really they can't give us firm dates on anything, really on when these roads will be open. And so a quick look using GPS. The best way to Kelowna by car at the moment is through the U.S., 8 to 12 hours. Don't forget about the border waits. And sure enough, we spoke to a woman from Vernon who's been trying to get home since Sunday, but is stuck near Highway 99.
No idea how to get there. I've got work, I'm messaging work constantly. Sorry, road's closed, can't do it. Next update's at 11, next update's at 12. Oh, it's awful. It's just there's so many tragic stories. People are suffering all over the place. They're getting helicoptered out. People are losing their homes. The trailer home that was floating down the river. How tragic.
Our maintenance contractors have gathered all the heavy equipment they can. They are ready to clear roads. They are waiting for the signal of when it is safe to do so, and on many of our highways. We fully recognize how important it is right now in British Columbia to reopen the road connections from the Lower Mainland to the interior to get supply chains moving again.
And that is a priority, we're told. They hinted that Highway 3 is likely the route that will open soonest. That's the lower highway, of course, that takes you through Manning Park and through Princeton. But before then, Highway 1, of course, in Abbotsford would need to recede and open first. Mijun.
All right, thank you, Sinjin.
Well, the slides and flooding that have shut down those major routes indefinitely, as Sinjin just mentioned, have also left many travelers stranded tonight.
1,100 evacuees are stuck in Hope, and while work is underway to create an access road for now, there's no idea when people will be able to return home. CTV's Maria Weisgarber has that story.
I think the hardest bit is just not knowing when or how we're going to get out of here.
It's a waiting game for travelers left stranded by flooding and slides.
We're getting SMS messages from friends and family with horrible pictures of roads in any which direction.
Mar Muller has been sleeping in her car outside the Hope Esso truck stop and says dozens of other vehicles are there too.
We open up the restaurant at night for people to sleep and stay warm. I think all the hotels are sold out for tonight. People are not sure when they'll be able to get out.
We were able to reach Manning Park, and luckily we got a room. Somebody was kind enough to allow us to stay in his room.
Before reaching the park, Harpreet Singh had also been sleeping in his car.
There was a landslide and we were stopped over there. It's been now 2.5 days. Nothing has happened and a lot of us are stranded over here.
The province says Emergency Management BC is working with the Wildfire Service to bring more food, water and cots to Hope. In the meantime, local businesses, churches and other facilities have opened their doors.
I think we ended up with about 250 people coming.
This lodge near Hope, usually part of a church-owned summer camp, is now sheltering and feeding the stranded, along with evacuees from the Lytton fire, who still haven't been able to return home.
Maybe wasn't 5-star hotel worthy. It probably was a lot better than being in a car at night.
And in Hope, a local pizza place has been giving away food to those in need.
They've been super grateful. For one person I know, he said he hasn't had food for 26 hours.
Even with some supplies running low, the family-owned business hopes to keep going.
We ran out of food completely yesterday, so we're trying to resupply for today. And whoever comes in, we're just trying to help them as well.
Bringing hope to those still waiting to go home. Maria Weisgarber, CTV News.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau commented on the situation in our province today, saying support is a top priority.
Obviously, extremely concerned about the situation in British Columbia right now, and quite frankly, what hundreds of families are going through. Thousands of people affected across the province by these extreme weather events. As a government, we've been liaising closely with the government of British Columbia, providing supports in any way we can, and we will continue to be there.
Trudeau is scheduled to speak on the phone with Premier John Horgan tonight.
Meanwhile, opposition leaders are calling out the provincial government, saying more should have been done to sound the alarm and alert British Columbians to the serious danger posed by the weekend storm. CTV's Ben Mildred joins us with more on that criticism. Ben.
Green Party leader Sonia Firstino pointed out that just south of the border in Washington state arranged for sandbags for areas expected to be hit hard by the storm, while here in BC there appeared to be a more reactionary approach. One person has died, at least 2 people are missing, and hundreds spent the night in their cars, stranded on highways between or even in massive mudslides. Today, the public safety minister advised against non-essential travel to affected areas, but Firstino wants to know why that message wasn't pushed heading into the weekend when forecasters predicted southern BC would take a direct hit from this atmospheric river, delivering a month's worth of rain in a period of just a few hours.
I think it would have been really good to tell people on Saturday, don't travel unless you absolutely need to. This is a rainstorm unlike anything we've seen in a long, long time. And we should all focus on staying safe and staying off the roads.
There was significant warning in terms of weather and the rain that was coming, that was out on the media and on the weather networks. All of that was taking place.
Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth says he will brief Cabinet tomorrow, and an overhaul of the Emergency Protection Act is already underway. But he denied the province came up short when it comes to warning people about the potential impacts of this storm. Scott, Mijung.
Thank you, Ben.
The situation is tense in Merritt at this hour as dozens of people have stayed behind amid fears of looting and scarce accommodations elsewhere. Officials are warning people to stay away, with one bridge already collapsed and one family rescued from a rooftop a short time ago. CTV's Penny Daflos now on one of the communities hardest hit by the floodwaters.
As snow blanketed the flood-ravaged town overnight, one of Merritt's bridges collapsed.
As a result, we're not confident about the structural integrity of any bridge in the city. We are contacting structural bridge engineers and arranging for them to do inspections.
It was pretty horrifying, actually. The rain was absolutely incessant.
Specialists from North Shore Rescue flew from the Lower Mainland to rescue a family of 3 stranded on a roof. But despite the volume of water, failing infrastructure, the health risks of untreated sewage mixing with it, and the lack of drinkable water and supplies, some people have decided to stay.
More than half the town's gone. And it's just like an opening door for come take what you want.
You got bad people out there that are looting.
Residents also feel they have few options but to share supplies where they are rather than risk not having somewhere else to stay.
I'd rather be in my house having these issues than in my car with my animals and my kids having these issues.
CTV News asked the public safety minister what he has to say to people who feel they have to stay behind because they're worried about their homes and feel they have nowhere else to go.
The RCMP are on patrol. They are in the communities that they are protecting. So they are very much alive to the concerns and situations of residents.
Farnworth also insists there are evacuation centers ready and able to house and feed people. Some have found themselves hours away staying with virtual strangers.
Everyone's helping each other as much as they can. Small towns.
To be honest, we still don't know what's going on.
I just 1 foot forward, but how? You know, how do we start again?
Officials insist they'll tell residents what comes next as soon as they know themselves.
Nobody really knows what the extent of the damage is, and we're going to have to wait, I'm afraid, for a few more days until the water recedes sufficiently.
Penny Dafflaw, CTV News, Vancouver.
And speaking of receding water, let's bring in Ann Liu now, who is tracking all this water in the CTV Weather Center. Of course, everyone wondering when this water is going to recede, and it may happen at different times at different places.
Well, it has peaked, which is the good news. Flood warnings are still in effect for Merritt, Coldwater, and Nicola, as well as Tulameen and the Sumas area. So flood watch is in place for parts of the Fraser Valley. The River Center expects to see continued improvement in the river levels over the coming days with drier conditions. So this is why we are seeing drier conditions. The ridge of high pressure that brought us all the sunshine today will slide towards the east, will continue to keep us dry as we head into tomorrow. So the Fraser Valley the next 3 days looking pretty good. We will get some sunny breaks in there. We will see a few showers and not a lot of rain, probably about 3 millimeters expected on Thursday before drying up once again on Friday with overcast skies and have a high of 8 degrees. So definitely not a complete washout. Pretty good conditions for people, for the rivers, and for rescuers, and just everybody trying to get out of that situation.
Yeah, we were all relieved to see that sun in the sky today. Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Well, a massive barge pushed onto the rocks in English Bay is still there tonight. A tug has been unable to move it.
The barge washed onto the beach yesterday, and there were fears it could be swept into the pylons of the Burrard Street Bridge. CTV's Alyssa Thibault has the latest.
You can see just how big this vessel is, and it just would not budge. That's despite the best efforts of tugboat crews who came here at high tide when the chances were greatest of it lifting up off the rocks and out into deeper water. Now, the tug latched onto one corner just before 3:30 when the tide was at its highest, but after several attempts, well, the barge just didn't move at all. So they tried to change tactics and pull it from the other side, but still no luck. Now, it was Monday afternoon during the fierce winds. The vessel somehow became unmoored and was floating close to the shoreline, eventually coming to rest on the rocks at Sunset Beach. By morning, the height difference between the storm surge and the regular tide was obvious, and the sheer size of this barge gave for a pretty exciting backdrop for photos, especially for locals who had been watching since Monday.
Suddenly, this barge appeared and just started coming right at me, and I thought, wow.
I live just across the street, and I basically fly drones for a living, and I figured I'd get some footage.
Here's that footage he was talking about. You can see the barge is empty, and the Coast Guard says it was previously filled with wood chips, so no oils or gases and no risk of pollution. Now, it's unclear what happens next, but the next high tide during daylight hours is 3:26 Wednesday afternoon, and it's likely crews will come back then and try this again. Alyssa Thibault, CTV News, Vancouver.
Vancouver Island was also hammered by destructive flooding.
It's having a huge impact on the major artery out of Victoria, the Malahat, how long it will take to get traffic moving, and the other communities hit hard by serious flooding. When CTV News continues, we are back in just 60 seconds. Evacuation orders, flooded roads, and a major highway offline. That is what Vancouver Island faced during the storm. And now comes the cleanup.
As CTV's Binder Sudjan reports, officials say when it comes to certain regions, if you don't need to travel, stay put.
Open to single-lane alternating traffic, the main artery to the capital shut down in both directions Monday by heavy rain and flooding.
It's frightening. Definitely, we're not ready for this kind of rainfall again.
We're okay. The rain is crazy, but this is global warming.
A portion of the Malahat needs repair, so until the 22nd, a stretch will close from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And alternating closures mean it will be slow going during the day. For many, the best option to get home by ferry between Brentwood Bay and Mill Bay.
Thank you very much for this.
Strangers handing out coffee, food, and blankets to those camped out for hours trying to get moving.
Oh, it was terrible. Cramped up, my back hurts.
Additional sailings ran late into the night and continue.
Small sailings, so we need to ensure that really is essential movement only. If you don't need to be on any of these roads, please do avoid travel.
Further north, flooding in the Cowichan Valley led to a state of local emergency. Several properties along the river ordered evacuated. Some roads remain closed. Rivers in Parksville and Qualicum also under siege. Several evacuation orders remain in place.
There was a knock on my door, and it was the fire department saying that I had to leave.
From the west coast to the east, floodwaters wreaked havoc on the roads and basements, particularly in the south. Now comes the cleanup. Binder Sudjan, CTV News, Victoria.
And just some incredible dramatic images, and it's hard to believe how much rain we got in such a short span of time.
Yeah, that's right. We still have 2 more weeks to go with November, and it is the wettest month of the year. So far, we've seen 209.3 millimeters of rain at the airport. The average rainfall amount is 185.8 millimeters. We were slightly below seasonal for in regards to average highs and lows. As we head through the overnight, we will see a few clouds dropping down to 1, well below seasonal. Into tomorrow, another dry day, which is great news. We will see a few sunny breaks in there, mostly cloudy skies with a high of 7 degrees. CTV weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. And these rainfall amounts were historic and record-breaking, and I've got those details coming up.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
Well, flooding is taking a huge human and financial toll.
Ross McLaughlin is up next with what you need to know about flooding and insurance and how this natural disaster will impact rates for all of us. That's coming up on CTV News.
Time now for tonight's Skywatch. A beautiful day to be boating on the mighty Fraser, heading west from Coquitlam. CTV Skywatch is brought to you by Sussex Insurance, your community auto plan experts. For questions about recent ICBC changes or location information, visit sussexinsurance.com.
The devastation from the heavy rains, flooding, and winds is going to be costly.
Many property owners should be covered, but Ross, the impact on insurance rates could actually be long-lasting here. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it seems to be one disaster after another. Fires in the summer and now flooding. BC has optional insurance called overland flood coverage, and fortunately, about half of BC property owners have it. Damage to homes and property is expected to be widespread, and insurance companies are mobilizing to help. If you have overland flood coverage, you'll be covered. However, those without it will not be covered for flood damage.
We do know, and we have received reports of overland flood damage, sewer backups, even wind damage. If you have been evacuated and you do have the overland flood coverage, you also have coverage for your additional living expenses.
Businesses and farms are also affected. The Insurance Bureau of Canada won't have claims numbers for at least another month, but one thing we do know, over the past decade, insurance claims have more than doubled from $600 million to more than $2 billion. The impact of climate change, a major contributing factor.
We are seeing an increase in the frequency and severity, and we really need to make sure that we're talking about building resilience within our communities. And this is something that everyone needs to take a part of, the insurance industry, as well as governments and other stakeholders to help build this resilience to make these communities safer.
You may be wondering, what about those who couldn't get flood insurance? There has been no announcement yet, but after last year's winter floods, the provincial government provided disaster financial assistance to those who couldn't get that flood coverage. So hopefully, we reached out to Emergency BC to ask that question. We haven't heard back yet, but it's likely that will be coming.
We certainly hope there is something there. We heard from the Prime Minister earlier as well that federal aid will likely be coming to BC, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
I think this is too big to ignore.
All right, thank you, Ross. Well, a jury is deciding the fate of the 18-year-old charged with killing 2 people in a protest in Wisconsin.
And dramatic video out of Poland tonight. Security forces targeting desperate migrants with water cannons and tear gas. The backlash against the actions still ahead tonight on CTV News at 6.